Hello, I'm Don Mitchell. Welcome back to Business Basics. We continue to look at ways to reduce investment intensity. As we did in the last lesson, our topic will be looking at financial strategies that can assist in doing so. Today's lesson is number 49. We're almost to the end, and it's entitled Choose the Optimal Debt Level to Extract Cash from the Balance Sheet. And as always, I'm going to begin by quoting from the Bible to sort of set the right mood here. In this case, I'll be quoting from a fairly lengthy section of 2 Kings chapter 4, verses 1 through 7 in the New King James Version. And I quote, "A certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared the Lord. And the creditor is coming to take my two sons to be his slaves." So Elisha said to her, "What shall I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house?" And she said, "Your maidservant has nothing in the house but a jar of oil." Then he said, "Go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors, empty vessels. Do not gather just a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons. Then pour into all these vessels and set aside the full ones." So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her. And she poured it out. Now it came to pass, when the vessels were full, that she said to her son, "Bring me another vessel." And he said to her, "There is not another vessel." So then the oil ceased. Then she came and told the man of God, and he said, "Go sell the oil and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest." Well, hopefully you'll have miracles like that present in your life as well. So what happens when you increase an organization's revenues by 20 times, reduce per unit cost of an offering by 96%, and then eliminate 96% of all investments for each offering? As noted in lessons 47 and 48, you create an organization that has a very high profit margin, large profits, little need to reinvest, and much cash. As also noted, most companies pick poor alternatives for their excess cash. In this lesson, we looked at how to quickly and inexpensively understand the optimal debt level while engaging in the most attractive cash use choices, something we talked about in the last lesson. Since 1960, most organizations have taken on ever more debt as a percentage of their total capital. As a result, some organizations are employing as much as hundreds of dollars in debt for every single dollar of equity. Naturally, when economic or financial environments suddenly worsen, it's just such organizations that are brought to their knees. Bear Stearns and Lehman Brothers in 2008 are well-known examples in the United States, and the same result would have happened to thousands of other highly debt-leveraged enterprises around the world without the benefit of coordinated government bailouts, supplying low or zero-interest loans, equity infusions, and financial guarantees. The concept of debt-to-equity ratio doesn't apply very well to such a highly effective enterprise as we have been studying, because such an organization can be healthy and huge while relying on a relatively small equity foundation. Even if a great deal of debt relative to equity were added to such an enterprise, the total amount of debt would be modest compared to the organization's ability to cover interest costs and repay principal through its large and rapidly expanding cash flow. Some financial theorists would point to the level of cash flow and steadiness as better indicators of safe debt levels than the traditional debt-to-equity ratio. In such terms, a 2,000% cube solution enterprise is a debt-carrying long-haired Samson. Let's consider an example. Assume that an enterprise has $1 million in sales this year, will grow at 40% annually, has a 96% profit margin as a percentage of sales, and only requires $1 of net assets for every $100 in revenues. Here are the numbers. Pre-tax profits are $960,000. Net assets are only $10,000. Annual pre-tax cash flow is $956,000 before paying any dividends, which is $960,000 in pre-tax profits minus $4,000 needed in new net assets. Assuming the organization borrows money at interest cost of 5% a year before taxes and wants to have 3 times more cash flow than it needs to pay the interest cost, the organization's debt capacity is $6.36 million. After a year, all these numbers increase by 40% as follows. Pre-tax profits are $1.344 million. Net assets are only $14,000. Pre-tax cash flow is $1.3384 million, which is $1.344 million in pre-tax profits minus 5,600 in net new assets. Assuming the organization borrows money 5% a year before tax, wants to have 3 times more cash flow than it needs to pay for the interest cost, the debt capacity expands after 1 year to 8.92 million, an increase of 2.56 million. Some financial owners would go wild with such an opportunity, as they could easily use the expanded debt capacity each year to repay all the interest costs incurred. As a result, they might borrow so much that the interest costs would amount to 80% of the forecasted cash flow for the following year. With such an approach, debt capacity expands to approximately $30 million. However, I don't think it's prudent to use that much debt, but considering the choice does raise an interesting point. The 2000% cube solution enterprise described in this example during stable circumstances can raise virtually unlimited amounts of debt. How should an enterprise think about appropriate debt levels? First, it's clear that an organization should identify and consider investment options way beyond the scale of what its competitors and similar sized companies normally consider. For example, in some industries, you would have a large investment to obtain a new customer, such as occurs for those offering outsourced information technology services. Such IT customers may expect you to buy the existing equipment, hire the current employees, and pay for the software that's already been purchased and developed, as well as pay a price premium to the value of what's received in return for a profitable long-term contract to perform what the customer has formerly done for itself. With its amazing debt capacity, cash would not be a limitation for such an enterprise in adding new customers. The ability to successfully integrate and operate the new operations, however, would be. In such an instance, it would be worthwhile to consider speeding market share gains by acquiring competitors with enterprise's unused customer adding capacity. Normally, such a strategy wouldn't be affordable except for a company paying with exceptionally high price-to-earnings ratio stock for acquisitions and customer investments. Second, the organization may be able to gain cost advantages on a scale that competitors cannot achieve. For instance, organizations are usually unable to afford hedging their costs very far into the future. A 2000% cube organization would be able to afford to take physical possession of vast amounts of commodities and currencies that are expected to appreciate at a rapid rate, allowing costs to be contained near current levels for many years. Such a tactic makes sense only when the rate of cost increases is well above the interest rate for the borrowed money and the cost of storing and safeguarding what is purchased. Third, the 2000% cube solution enterprise may be able to support types of investments by suppliers, customers, partners, and other stakeholders that provide enormous advantages that competitors will never be able to consider matching. Imagine such an enterprise being in the vehicle manufacturing business at a time when vehicle dealerships were being eliminated very rapidly due to economic distress. Such an enterprise could expand and improve its dealerships while also providing very attractive financing to its dealers' customers. With such a strategy in such an environment, enormous market share gains might occur while many competitors were forced by circumstances to retrench. Fourth, and most importantly, the 2000% cubed enterprise could use the information from its proprietary expenditure models to improve stakeholder performance in ways that greatly accelerate industry growth and enhance competitive position that competitors may not understand until it's too late to respond. Rather than being limited to what cash flow would pay for, such an organization can leap ahead of competitors, even much larger ones, by increasing its stakeholder improving investments by a vast multiple. As long as operational integrity is maintained during such accelerated spending, the investment will pay off in huge future cash flows, make it easy to pay the interest and repay the principal while maintaining cash balances at optimal levels. To understand this point, imagine that energy prices will increase very rapidly in the next century. Wind turbines are one of the few relatively untapped non-petrochemical energy sources. There are few windy places with a political will to allow wind farms. A 2000% cube solution enterprise might grab a huge share of the ultimate market by acquiring long-term leases now in prime locations for wind farms, putting in the most efficient turbines, and then frequently upgrading its technology. After locking up the best sites, no one else would have the capacity or ability to respond. As you can see, large amounts of debt can be invested, whether it is great existing and rapidly growing cash flow, to create even more resources for tilting the competitive field in your favor, providing more reasons to avoid piling up cash on your balance sheet as you instead apply an appropriately sized mountain of temporary debt for valuable strategic purposes. What's the key point about choosing the optimal debt level to extract cash from the balance sheet? Redesign your company's business models, methods of operating, use of facilities, ownership of facilities, breadth of product line and offerings to reduce investments by 96% for you and your stakeholders, and to create lots of excess cash flow. And increase your potential to provide the most benefit to all stakeholders by learning a lot at little expense about how excess cash might best be applied to the value chain through modeling the effects of added investments, using such understanding cash flow to employ reasonable amounts of unused debt capacity to engage in even better strategic options that help avoid harmful future cash buildups in your enterprise. So your assignments here are three. First, identify the 5 most significant investments to which you could apply excess cash and unused debt capacity to provide more benefits that stakeholders want. Second, consider how such change would affect all other stakeholders. Third, investigate how your business models, operating methods, breadth of product line and offerings could be shifted over time to be even more effective by making it easier for stakeholders and your company to identify and to implement better ways to operate with very little investment as a result of your employment of excess cash and unused debt capacity. So I hope this lesson has stimulated your imagination, expanded your horizons, and caused you to see opportunities you might otherwise miss. I hope you'll be back soon to learn more about other great strategic options that you may not yet be considering as part of Business Basics. But in the meantime, may God bless you, your family, and all you do in the name of Jesus. Goodbye for now. Take care.